Welcome to the Takeoff Podcast, the go-to construction podcast for construction professionals seeking inspiration, education, or motivation for the next steps in their career. Each Monday, you'll be joined by me, Mick Donaghy, Managing Director of Gedden Executive Recruitment and a respected name from the industry. A construction leader, a business owner, or someone in the thick of the action. The whole premise of this podcast is for you to get something from it. An idea, a connection, a mentor, whatever it is, I hope you get it. And I hope you enjoy the show. Without further ado, let's get into it. Right, so now we're going to talk about the key markets that we focus on. So we focus on three, jurisdictions, right? So Australia, New Zealand, I mean, you can call it APAC. We focus on UK and Ireland, which is sort of our European region, and then North America. So all three of them have different...
Yeah, they're all... Well, what we're experiencing and keen to get your thoughts on is every different area has different demands for specialisms. For example, when we look at the work that we do in the States, very different to the work that we do in Australia, even more different to the work we do in the UK. What's the biggest driver, for example, an American quantity surveying firm or an American business? Where is the real key hot sort of skill sets or markets there?
In the US, there's a massive demand for quantity surveying or cost management talent. Depends what way you want to call them. In my opinion, look, having worked multiple markets, multiple regions, multiple jurisdictions, it's still quite in the growth phase, right? So you're looking at really specialist types of opportunities, types of roles. The big one is cloud infrastructure, semiconductor factories, and data centers, right?
In the States?
In the US, in the States. So the reason for that is obviously the war on talent, but also what we're seeing with AI. So artificial intelligence it's been bubbling and bubbling and bubbling, but in the last sort of 18 months, there's just been a skyrocket to the moon. Now that you're looking at what from a policy point of view, the US is trying to build a lot of that capability within the country instead of outsourcing that to Taiwan or China, obviously due to the political the differences there. So that means that you're seeing these huge data centers being built in the likes of Arizona,
Middle America,
Texas, Kansas, all these areas where effectively energy is cheap, right? And so what's happening is there isn't the typical sort of QS focused degrees in the US. And so a lot of these people that are coming to fulfill those types of roles are coming in from the UK, Ireland, Australia, South Africa, right? So you walk into a QS firm in Australia or in America, and it mirrors a QS firm anywhere in the world. It's really multicultural, and they have a whole range of different types of experience. They're coming from all corners of the world. But the main thing that we're seeing is that if you're comparing it to Australia, in the US, quantity surveying is predominantly post-contract. So it's change management, it's project controls, it's cost management.
I find that the same as recently spoke with, when you look on someone's CV, you think PQS firm, and they are, but he had described it to me as he seen himself more as operating like a contractor. He was physically on site with the contractor, looking after that, cost management, contract administration, contract management, and he actually came back to Australia, and that's the route where he felt that he could add more value. It wasn't in a PQS business, it was in a contractor, because that is all the work that he was doing. It's almost like a secondment to the contractor as a CA or as a a QS or whatever way you want to call it. But do you think that that's the byproduct of that specialism, is that they're breeding that type of cost specialist?
From where I'm seeing it is, so in the US, they've got really defined roles. So they have an estimator is estimating absolutely massive in the US. So like you might have an estimating team and there's 100 estimators in the team. Like, because the country's so big, obviously 330 million people, you know, you just have so many people working on different states, different types of jobs, different types of projects. So the estimating role is very specialist and very focused on estimating, right? I know that sounds silly, but you know, there's very little crossover into the post-contract stuff.
Yeah.
In cost management, in quantity surveying, they're not getting involved in pre-contracts, in cost planning, in BOQ development and measurement. They're focusing on change management, value engineering, you know, negotiation, client engagement.
Yeah.
And so you've got these big clients, say the likes of Meta, Amazon, you know, Microsoft. They're employing the QS firm and saying we need between 5 and 10 QSs on this campus, and a campus might be a data center campus, which will require they're monitoring the cash flow, they're monitoring the cost on those specific projects, because they in the US they're basically hiring that QS firm as an outsourced cost management business that are going to make sure that the project runs smoothly from a cost point of view, and that hasn't been taken up that way in Australia.
Yeah. Well, I think naturally what will happen if you even look at it on a more micro level, you have a big business. You typically your role gets segmented because you've got abundant resources. Whereas if you're in a small company, you may have to wear a couple of different hats. You know, and maybe it's the exact same with where America is now in their, you know, the data center space versus Australia at the moment. It's that big and expansive that they can afford to be that specialist, rather than maybe being a pre-con and post-contract type work, you know.
One of the main things as well in the US is that a lot of people work remote. So, you know, you could be based in Florida but working on projects in Arizona or Texas.
Yeah.
You know, you could be based in New York, but your focus might be, you know, working on projects in the central states. So, you know, that's different as well. They're more sort of forthcoming with working from home, the flexibility. There's a lot more scope around that. One other thing as well in the US is that you can grow astronomically quick, right? So you can go from say being a QS to being a commercial manager in 2 years. But the way of doing that is by going out to the regional areas, by going out to these towns where the data centers are, and there might only be 2,000 people in that town. But if you spend, say, 6 months there, you're nearly getting a promotion. Another 12 months, you're getting another promotion. And then the companies are very, very open to you moving back to a major center like San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, New York, because you've sort of proven that you're willing to go through those sort of challenging
locations.
Challenging locations,
Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting now because I think, you know, America is so far ahead of the curve in that game, naturally with the tech firms that are based there, that the headquarters and stuff for there. So it'll be interesting to see now where Australia goes with that, because similarly to the States, a lot of uninhabitable land, you know, cheap energy prices, stuff like that. And there is, we see in the mining sector, people are willing to go to those areas to make a living, to make money. I wonder, will it be the same eventually in Australia? Obviously, that could take the next 20, 30, whatever years. But
I think, looking at Australia from like a solar point of view, you get these huge solar farms. You know, like I think that they have really competitive, I guess, goals to hit within the next sort of 5 to 10 years from a carbon neutral point of view, from an energy consumption point of view. There's all of these aspects that they're looking at going, we want to have a clean energy country. We want fully electric vehicles. But all of these creates massive demand for batteries, battery consumption, like how if everyone's charging batteries because everyone has an electric car, what does that do from an electrical grid point of view? How are we creating that? It's not going to come from you know, Is it coming from coal? Is it coming from nuclear? So these are the conversations that are being had at the moment within Australia, but within the similar sort of tech infrastructure, it's huge. The demand is going to increase and increase and increase. And we've been commenting over the last few episodes on Australia is kind of like a mini the US in many cases. So there will be they will follow that pattern eventually. And I think that's a good thing for the QS industry. I think if I was a QS company, I would be looking at acquiring quality people within tech, cloud infrastructure, sustainability, carbon neutral, data centers, those areas that the growth is in. Even sustainability, like sustainability is going to be huge.
Well, how much of an interest have we seen with particularly Aussie guys that maybe go to the States for 5 or 6 years, work for these big firms, get that real niche sort of sector, industry experience, and they come back to Australia for family reasons, whatever, and they are hot shit. Their companies are literally all over them because I think they now see where the trends are in the market. And getting someone in now with that experience, even with a network of other people that may be coming back, is they are in demand.
If I'm a young person as an estimator or QS right now, I'm thinking I need to take advantage of this future growth, right? So you look at traditionally, it would have been like carpentry, or would have been concrete block, RNC concrete, like that stuff I'm thinking about back in London and Ireland, right? So, but there was that traditional construction, but now we're looking at going like. Right, guys, so I'm absolutely pumped to say the Takeoff podcast is proud to be sponsored by RIB Software, the company behind some of the leading estimating software in the entire planet, including Costex, Candy, CX, and more. So firstly, if you didn't know, RIB are a powerhouse at providing innovative software solutions to the construction and engineering markets. They have over 500,000 users globally, are known universally as a solution provider for your entire project lifecycle, from planning to construction and beyond. RIB solutions help to ultimately connect people, processes, and data, so your project comes within budget, on time, and to the quality desired, all whilst reducing your business's carbon footprint. All this stuff matters, and RIB has the solutions. So if you're interested in finding out more, get on over to rib-software.com, reach out to your local team and quote Takeoff Podcast. For every listener who buys a subscription of RIB Costex, they will provide one free online training course. Okay guys, back to the episode. That's very basic. Now it's like electrical, mechanical, those types of services. That's how that girl you mentioned in the last episode was able to come into Australia, 5 years experience overseas, and get offered, maybe 20k more than someone who lived in Australia for the last 15 years. They're able to get that because of their experience within data centers, their experience within mechanical, electrical, experience within services. And that's, for me, I'm looking at specializing in that as an estimator, or that as a quantity surveyor. What are MEP QSs like? If you get an MEP QS, you can do data centers. Every single QS firm wants you.
That's the golden ticket. But then, is it? I've actually never been to the States. Never been there at all. I've obviously never worked there. But it's not, from what I'm hearing, it's not for everyone. If you're someone, it seems to be a young guy's game, young girl's game, go and live in these remote areas. But is it like, when you hear these horror stories of you've got no holiday entitlement, or is that the case still within this space? Because I can't imagine that an Aussie bloke or an Irish guy, I know they're not afraid of work, but giving up those conditions that we're lucky to have in these countries to go and work, they make good money, but condition wise, is that still the case?
So each company has its own policies, and each companies are fighting for talent. So quite often that they'll have, good working conditions, good vacation leave, paid time off, because they know that they have to do something to be able to attract that person into the business. What I'm finding is, like, there's so many different types of things that you should consider in the US. Is, your health insurance is massive. Your Your retirement fund is huge. Your vacation pay time off is big as well. But when you satisfy, say, those three conditions, they are quite forthcoming with regards to working remotely, working from home. Like a lot of estimators and quantity surveyors that I'm speaking to in the US, they nearly do that like full time working from home.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. You know, you wouldn't get that anywhere in Australia. You wouldn't get that anywhere in New Zealand, even the UK or Ireland. So
Yeah.
that's something that could offer from a lifestyle perspective. The US is so big as well. So like what you see on TV in general is not what you will experience.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to the US, I just had this image of like loud Americans, you know, brass. And then I went to the US and I couldn't have loved them anymore. They were so friendly. They were over the top, like nice, interested. All of these types of things that you generally wouldn't maybe experience if I was in Ireland. I wouldn't have that level of friendliness. And so, like, there was times, for example, I was on a track. I remember I was in Lake Tahoe. I went up a track. There was a little Chinese woman walking down the track and an older fella walking down. And I was like, "Do you need a hand down to the bottom?" Because they looked like they were struggling. And then we got chatting to them. One of them, the lady goes, she starts telling me about her whole life story. She moved from China to the US when she was 17, didn't speak any English. She got jobs in tech. John was from Manchester. He was like in his 70s. She gave me tickets from her handbag to the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, right? Literally took out her handbag and gave it to me and my friend. Then said to us, if you're ever in Silicon Valley, pop in and you can stay with us. And sure, about a week later, we gave him a call and said, do you mind if we could stay for a few days? We arrived at their house and there was like 15 people. They had a party for us arriving. It was hilarious. I was like, this is outrageous. They were just so nice. They cooked us dinner. They actually dropped us to the airport, made us a packed lunch. We went to Vegas. Right, we went to Vegas, came back after a couple of days in Vegas, which you can imagine what we were like then.
Yeah.
Picked us up from the airport again, brought us back home, washed all our clothes. And I remember that at the time I was watching the Trump and Hillary debate. It was hilarious. And the guy, John, he gave me this glass, right? And he poured me a bourbon or a whiskey or something. And you know when you pour like maybe a third of the glass or maybe even quarter of the glass? He poured me 2/3 of this glass, right? And I got down to like a third, and he's like, "Time for a top up." Tops it up again. I'm sitting blocked watching this.
You back from Vegas, talking about a ref fight.
Exactly, but that was just like a short example. Like people are just so overly friendly, and especially, and this is always comes in for us when you're Irish. Like people just generally like
roll out the red carpet.
Yeah, especially
for no reason.
Everyone likes you apart from Irish people. But the US has got like an incredible landscape. And one thing, like you think most people in the US don't have a passport. So like, you could live in California and go, I don't want to live in California anymore. I actually want to go and live, 3,000 kilometers away.
Whatever.
Yeah. So like, you look at what you're watching, Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You could, like anyone in the US could go and live in
Montana.
Montana. There's only like 500,000 people in Montana.
I'd love to go to Montana.
But you know what I mean? So you've got this incredible country that's full of insane political jargon and bad news all the time. But when you go there, it's not really like what you experience. But one of the other jurisdictions that we work is UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
And
it's obviously, naturally, as we just touched on, smaller demand, smaller place population, all that sort of stuff. So maybe don't have the luxuries of being real sort of specialist or having like a specialist sector. It's more your generalist companies, generalist sort of skill sets that tend to be the norm there, I suppose. Which is helpful whenever they decide to maybe come to a place like Australia or come to a place like Canada, as much as it is to be a specialist,
Yeah.
But it's still very much that generalist. Even when you look at costing from the QSs there, will do estimating.
Yeah.
And then they might deliver it as well. Whereas when they come to Australia, sometimes they get a little bit of a shock when it's like, I now just do this.
Yeah, I know.
do that.
Estimating, you know,
And they struggle with it sometimes.
yeah, because like a QS, say from Ireland to UK, they'll get involved in estimating, procurement,
Yeah.
buying,
Staging, programming,
programming,
methodology.
right through to commercial management of the
Yeah.
job. And so they're taking thing from the very start to the very end. And then all of a sudden they'll maybe come to a country like Australia and they're only doing one part of
Yeah.
that. So they're doing 20% of what they would have been doing in the Ireland or UK.
Yeah.
But that's all that they're doing. So there is a real sort of struggle of
is.
adapting to that.
It's a bit like it's like ownership and oversight. When you're used to seeing something from dead dot right to that old saying cradle to grave, and then you're getting told, no, that's his job, this is your job. It's like, what? This is all I'm going to do now.
It's
South Africans struggle with it as well. You know, they really have a problem with like, yeah, you know, naturally, you know, when you've been involved in something and you see it out, it's almost like your baby. You've done it from dead dot right to the finish, and now it's almost like a little bit of it's not as special anymore. You don't feel as like warm and fuzzy. You know?
I know. I agree with that. It's just that each jurisdiction has its own challenges, and I think with Ireland and UK, you become really multifaceted, and you become good at a lot of stuff. And so that and on the flip side, if I'm maybe just saying on the flip side, is that because a lot of the countries that we're dealing with, they're Western, right? They're Western countries, so English is the first language. So as many people will go, oh, Australia's racist or the US is racist or whatever, they go, well, I don't think they're racist, but I can see elements of why you would maybe consider that. But if they're choosing say a natural English speaker over maybe someone who's maybe English is their second or third language, I think they're going to take the person who's got the natural English plus the rounded QS experience or estimating experience. So there is elements of you being that sort of generalist can be helpful because if you look at it and go, right, I am a generalist, but now I'm going to go specialize in something.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got that ability rather than going, I'm a specialist.
I want to go broad.
And I want to go broad, or I'm specialist, or being a specialist sometimes means that you only have that specialization. So you need to make sure that, say, if you were to go into electrical estimation, you know, in the first few years of your career, it will be difficult to get out of that in the next 30 years. So you've got to make sure that... Guys, I'm interrupting this podcast today to give you some information as to what I actually do every single day. So I own and operate a business called Get In Executive Recruitment. We're a specialist boutique recruitment company, and we specialize purely in the pre-construction and commercial construction markets globally. We're really well known and respected for our work in estimating, cost management, quantity surveying, and contract administration. Because we're hyper niche, we don't have millions of candidates. We don't really even have thousands, but more times than not, we have the right candidate for the right job at the right time. Unlike a lot of recruitment agents out there, we are super experienced in what we do. We understand the market, we understand what makes our clients tick, and our candidates tick too. Each and every single assignment we work on undergoes an extensive executive search process. It's robust and it works 100% of the time. We've also got a team of 5 researchers who map our markets out globally within our niche. They're amazing. They allow us to work fast, which saves our clients time and money too. So if you're interested in our process, drop us a message. Now back to the episode. You're happy doing that for that period of time?
Yeah, for sure. I spoke to someone recently who's still early on their career as a whole, but they've done 5 years as an estimator, and they've just decided they want to become a CA. And I'm like, God, that is going to be so tough for you. Unless you can go, I'm going right back to junior CA level, you know, you're going to have a real problem here, but we'll make it that transition. Because it's never easy, and it's also never receptive too.
I think it all comes down to the person. So if that person has amazing communication skills, I think that they could adapt, you know, into that type of role. But if they don't, if they're like what maybe they would consider an estimator to be as being like shy, introverted, you know, more of a solo operator, they'll struggle massively. They'll struggle in a massive way. But again, going back to sort of Ireland and UK, I've been speaking to a lot of people over the last 12 months who are QSs and go, I literally don't even need a CV. in Ireland or London or Manchester, I will have 3 offers the day I decide to resign.
Yeah.
Or the rumors will spread around site that I've resigned, and literally 3 different 2 subbies and a developer will come over to me and offer me a job.
Yeah.
And so quite often you don't even need a CV in Ireland, UK at the minute, because quantity surveying, because they're so multifaceted, they can do so much of a job that the contractors want.
We've always spoke about, and you recently spoke about maybe the difference in coming to a place like Australia versus New Zealand, and how you can really make something of yourself in New Zealand, 10x or 2 or 3 times quicker. Is it now the case that you can, as an Irish person, you can now do that at home because of the amount of people that are leaving?
How many left? It was like 70,000 or something last year.
There was record numbers left Ireland last year to come to Australia. Like, that was the record. But is there now a case of, what about the guys who strategically say, hunker down, I'm going to stay here, because every single person is leaving within the construction sector, and of course you might be forced to stay there, whether it's a family issue or whatever. But can you think of now someone who has the cop on to think, well, I'm now in a market that's talent short in Ireland, and I'm going to stay here, and this is where I can make something of myself?
I think there's definitely merit to that. I think if you look at the big centre of Ireland, obviously Dublin, and you look at the salaries on offer are insane. You will be, it's very interesting, right? If you work in Dublin and you're a QS, I genuinely don't know, apart from purely weather and maybe like experience, why you would want to leave Dublin to go to Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne, right? Now, what I'm going to say about that is, of course, if you're working in Ireland every day, weather is depressing, right? It's awful. So that's a big part of it. And I think in your 20s, you do just want to get out and experience the big world, right?
Well, and just before you go on, it has to be that, because when you look at Irish people in particular who come to Sydney, they hang about with other Irish people 100%. In Irish bars, so the only difference is it's 30 degrees outside.
What actually happens is, you're an Irish fella or girl, you leave Dublin or Galway or wherever, you come to Sydney, you go in general end up working with an Irish contractor, half the time civil contractor, or you'll go work for like a QS firm, and it'll be filled with Irish in the UK, right? And so you're not getting like, you're basically dealing with the same people you've been dealing with anyway, like as an experience point of view. And then what happens is, you're not earning more.
No.
So like, you're not, if you're based in Dublin, I'm using Dublin and London as 2 sort of hubs, right? If you're on, say, €70,000 or pounds in Dublin or London, you will get the exact same money in Sydney.
Yeah.
Right? Now, is what city's most expensive there? I would say they're all probably the same.
Very similar.
I would say Sydney, Dublin, and London are all very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, you're looking at some of the house prices in Dublin, it could be €900,000 for a 3-4 bedroom house that's semi-detached and looks like crap, right? But that would be €900,000, would be 1.8 million. I think you probably get a better type of house for 1.8 million in, say, Brisbane or Sydney, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to get a really gorgeous sort of house. But you've got to be careful, like your expectations are what it was. Like, when I was left in 2016, I remember between 2012 to 2016, there was just loads of Irish coming back, right? They were all leaving Australia and New Zealand to come back to Ireland, right? And I remember interviewing them all, and I was like, where was your favourite country? Like, where did you prefer? And nearly all of them said New Zealand. And that's the reason I went to New Zealand, because they all said it was, because you've got everything that Australia has, but within such a shorter, within such a smaller country. Yeah. So like, instead of traveling 10 hours, you're traveling 2 hours, and you know what I mean? So
well, we recently had a meeting when the client asked us, well, we're competing against Australia, for example, the neighbours, and of course you are, but my view is that New Zealand has got, for the right person, way more to offer than Australia does because of the lack of competition, or some people say that the lower competency levels. But it's the same now, I think, with Ireland, when there's such a drain that leave and go to these sort of, Australia, for example, or Canada, that what's left behind is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, as an example, like that chap, I don't know if I said it in this one or the last one, but that guy who went from fitting out staircases to becoming a project director of he now owns his own company and it's really successful, and so would that be the same in Ireland? I don't know if it'd be the same as that, because I do think they're, in general, like their craftsmanship, their contract knowledge, like they're very strong in many ways in terms of your the competition that you'll have.
Yeah.
But I think there's huge opportunity for staying, becoming a commercial manager maybe 5 years quicker than what you would have 5 years ago or whatever it might have been.
It sort of sounds like we're maybe not putting people off as such, but I think of course go to Australia. Why not? Of course go to New Zealand, but don't have the expectations of the mindset that you're going to have a way more salary, an insanely better lifestyle, or of course you have a better lifestyle with weather and things like that, but like from a financial rewards incentive, probably not too dissimilar from what you're leaving.
I think this is my theory, right? See, between 22 to 32, right? Once you've left uni and maybe had a gap year or something, and you're looking, your next move, 22 to 32, spending time overseas is amazing.
Yeah,
you'll meet loads of people. You'll experience different things, no matter what. Even if you're dealing with the same, like if you're in a group of Irish people, or even like, I know Indian people, they'll just hang around with Indian people. It's what people do. You gravitate towards your own, and so you'll meet others, and you'll build friendships, and you'll maybe get exposure to bigger projects and just do different types of stuff, and you'll travel, and like we're talking. Even the guy talking about all these little tropical islands that you can visit, and so you're never going to really maybe do that if you're based, say, in the UK or Ireland your whole life, right? So I would recommend traveling, right? But what I would say is, once you get to the point of maybe you're looking to settle down, you're having the kids, you want to start a family, you want to buy a home, that's when you usually start to have the conversations of, do we return home to Ireland? Do we stay here forever? All of these things come into account. I met a guy yesterday, and it was actually quite nice in a weird way, but he's a Scottish fella in a cafe.
That's right, yeah.
And he's been here for 60 years.
And he thought he hadn't lost his Glasgow accent, or he had lost it. He had not lost it.
Full Glaswegian. He's only been back to Scotland twice in 60 years. And I was like, but you know why? Because
don't blame him.
But if you think 60 years ago, what's that? 1960, right? In the 1960s, right? If you're leaving, you're never coming home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's the mentality. And like, too much choice is a killer. Too much choice breeds anxiety. Too much choice gives you confusion. So like, he was sort of happy enough. He was like, why would I go home now? Everyone's dead. You know what I mean? Like, fair enough.
Have a good day.
But in summary, like, each location will offer you something different. The US is going to offer you incredible opportunity to work on these incredible projects, from data centers, cloud infrastructure, big tech environments. The just in general, I think what you'll maybe gain from, say, as an Irish person or a person from the UK, culturally, it would be a lot different compared to moving to New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah.
New Zealand and Australia are very, very similar to what you have in the UK. Very, very similar sort of cultures. If you're wanting to stay in Ireland, I think your growth opportunity there is probably increased. I think if you're maybe someone coming to Australia or New Zealand, if you go to New Zealand, that your opportunity for growth is probably higher than what it would be in Australia. I think in Australia, once you've proven yourself over a period of time, 4 or 5 years, your opportunity then kicks in.
Yeah.
I think it kicks in once you've proven yourself. So each country has got so many different things to talk about, and we haven't even talked about the likes of Dubai, Saudi, now what's happening there. So the world's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's creating opportunity, and yeah, it's exciting times. Before you go today, guys, I'm just going to ask you to do one thing. Can you please go to Apple right now or Spotify right now and just give us those 5 stars? Hit that 5-star button. It makes such a difference you wouldn't believe. The whole idea of this show is to inspire, educate, and motivate our listeners. And we only do that if we're getting the best guests. The best guests want to see data. They want to see information. They want to see how many listeners that we get. And so all of this stuff is really, really important. So if you can just literally go and do that today, if you enjoy the show, just go and hit that 5-star button. It makes such a difference. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We're going to continue to push this out there every Monday. So if you can, hit that 5-star button. And if you can't, even share it with a friend. Go on to WhatsApp, flick it on to your crew. Guys, thank you so much for listening. On to next week.